Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
And my name is Jeff.
And we're going to answer your questions today. But first, Jeff, I have a question for you.
Yeah?
How are you doing today?
That's a pretty good question.
Yeah?
I'd say I'm doing pretty good.
Cool. Cool.
I don't think that changes any from
Probably
week
not.
to week.
Probably not. I mean, if we were having a bad day, I think we just wouldn't record that day.
Sure. I guess so. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So, if an episode doesn't go up, then just know that I'm probably not having a great day. Or at least my day's not pretty good, as I usually say.
Now that October October is at an end, I think I'll have some free time in the upcoming weeks. So
sure.
Hopefully that'll be nice. I've been so busy, with stuff with the podcast. Like we had the Hardy Dice Friends on here, and I was stressing about that for a really long time because having people on, it's I feel like there's higher stakes because now if we mess up, that we're wasting other people's time too.
Right. No, it went pretty well. So
yeah.
And of course, now that Halloween is over, the holiday shopping season has begun.
That's true. I'm not going to worry about that until halfway through December.
Sure, yeah. But it's like right when Halloween ends, they're waiting to put up the Christmas trees and things like that. It's like because Thanksgiving doesn't count.
Oh no, not at all.
Yeah,
I love Thanksgiving.
That's my favorite.
It's one of my favorites. I never used to like Thanksgiving because I hope my dad doesn't listen to this, but my parents never made good food for Thanksgiving. So whenever Thanksgiving came around, it's like, okay, dry turkey. Okay. From scratch mashed potatoes that have no flavor. Okay. Yeah.
Wait,
sure.
so you're not going to put butter into that?
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, my family's mostly Italian, so we did pretty well with food in all holidays, but Thanksgiving is definitely a good time for my stomach.
Yeah, and a few years ago, I started cooking the turkey myself.
Oh yeah,
and I learned about brining.
Yes.
Turkey.
Oh yeah,
and it's so good.
Yes, Gabe is a wonderful cook in many ways. He does he does a really good burger.
I do pride myself on my burgers.
He's got a really good burger. I want to say I've had you made turkey or something once. You made me a steak once that was really good.
Yeah, I did. That was for your birthday, I think. I think you and Skylar, I made you both steak.
Yeah, that was a good time.
Yeah. Also, last year I started making pumpkin cheesecakes.
Oh.
Which is my 100% all-time favorite dessert. I went out with some friends for, it was one of their birthdays. We all went out to eat afterwards, and I mentioned pumpkin cheesecake, and one of them was like, what is that?
You can do that?
You can do that? And I was like, literally, it is the best part of cheesecake and the best part of pumpkin pie put together. It is everything that could possibly be and more.
I'm pretty sure Skylar would be all about that. She likes cheesecake and all
Did you guys have any of my pumpkin cheesecake last year?
We must have.
Well, there will be at least one for Thanksgiving and at least one for Christmas.
Well, I look forward to it.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the upcoming few weeks, and I'm really, really excited.
Awesome.
Okay, so Jeff, you are walking along one day, and you stumble upon the Dragon's Hoard. That's all I got. Sorry.
It's just wait. I'm gonna search the Hoard for traps.
Okay. Ooh, good idea.
My perception roll of total of 5.
You don't see any traps.
I don't see any traps. Okay. Well, then I am going to, I'm gonna start piling some of the gold into my backpack.
Okay. Yeah, you do so. Roll a dexterity save.
Oh. I got a 13.
Okay. You realize that there is a pile of dog poop under it, and you almost scooped it into your bag, but you saved yourself at the last moment. This was a prank, Dragon's Hoard. Oh,
snap. Okay.
All right.
That's darn kids.
Yep, darn dragon kid, darn wormlings.
Darn wormlings.
All right, our Dragon's Hoard for today was submitted by Mickey via email.
Ooh.
And the item he submitted is the Axe of Storms.
Ooh.
Now, this weapon is actually borrowed from the 3rd edition Arms and Equipment Guide, but tweaked for one of his 5th edition players who's playing a homebrew Viking class he created for him. He kind of mixed the barbarian and fighter together.
Sure. Arms and Equipment Guide is pretty awesome.
That was a really, really good book. I remember when it came out, I remember Jay got a copy. I want to say Chris gave Jay a copy of it for his birthday because the guy on the front of the cover of the Arms and Equipment Guide looked just like Jay.
It's like a Smith guy or something.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
like the big beard and everything.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, that was such a good book. Had a bunch of like non-magical stuff in it.
Yeah.
Had a bunch of magical stuff in it.
Yeah, it basically put a gold amount to just a lot of random stuff, but like I don't know, like stuff you wouldn't think to like know how much. Like, you know, it's like I want to go to the shop and buy a pound of cashews or whatever. That might be in the player's handbook, but like I don't know. There's just so many mundane items in there that you wouldn't know, how much money to put to.
Yeah.
But the Arms and Equipment Guide just had a ton of stuff.
Yeah, it was a really good book. I would say that and Complete Warrior were probably like my 2 favorite 3rd edition or 3.5.
Yeah, I think Arms and Equipment was 3rd. I think the complete series was 3.5.
Okay, well my favorite 3.x books.
Sure.
Like just 3rd whatever books were probably Arms and Equipment Guide and Complete Warrior.
Yeah.
So anyway, great book, and this is an item from that book that he has updated to 5th edition.
Nice.
You want to get an item that grows with the player's character, and the additional bonuses and enhancements could be used to unlock its powers as side quest hooks for the DM. So these could be, I'm about to list some abilities for this. It could be that it levels up as the player does. Could be that it levels up when the player completes various quests.
Sure.
Kind of like what Weapons of Legacy did, where with Weapons of Legacy, it was a bunch of weapons that did level up as the player did, sort of.
Yeah.
But you had to go on a quest and also pay a whole bunch of money, which kind of, in my opinion, obviated the point of having it level up with the character anyway. But anyway, so this item, this is a powerful double axe with 2 intricately carved heads joined by a shaft made of a strange blue tinted wood. So it's got an axe head on one end and an axe head on the other. The orc double axe was like a 3rd edition weapon,
right? Yeah,
that didn't make it past 3rd edition. Like I don't know if it was anything before that, but it was not in 4th, was not in 5th.
Right. Yeah, it was sort of an odd thing, and like orcs automatically had proficiency in it. I think.
Well, they treated it as a martial weapon, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Something like that.
Yeah, which, I mean, like, it was an exotic weapon, and, orcs could use it as a martial.
Like the Dwarven Urgrosh, too. That was another one. It was an axe on one end, a spear on the other.
Yeah, racial weapons, yeah.
Yeah, that's a neat thing. I mean, they were kind of pointless. You could just do the same thing by giving your character 2 weapons and just saying that it's one weapon.
Sure. I think I made an orc character once that I flavored it like he had 2 axes rather than
an orc double axe.
Yeah.
So anyway, upon inspection, the Axe of Storms is of orcish design.
Ooh.
But it is of dwarven quality.
Ah.
So it's almost like it was made by an orc that was like trained by dwarves or something. Maybe. I don't know. Well, maybe it'll be in the description here. On the handle is written in Dwarvish, but in an orc dialect.
Huh. Yeah.
And it says, "The wrath of storms comes from within."
Ooh.
There's a legend that comes along with this. It is said that the Axe of Storms was I should have read ahead. I'm sorry.
No.
It is said that the Axe of Storms was created by a dwarf who was the daughter of a weaponsmith, captured and enslaved by orcs when she was a young girl.
Oh, okay.
So it was made by a dwarf who was enslaved by orcs. Through years of brutality, determination, some luck, and a strong will to live, she rose among the ranks of her orc peers and became a respected shaman of the god Talos.
Ooh.
The god of storms, I believe?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
And that kind of goes with the theming here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, its effects. This is a dual axe, each end dealing 1d8 damage, and you must be attuned to it to receive the other bonuses and enchantments I'll get to in a moment. After it's attuned, It acts as a +1 weapon, so it gains a +1 to attack and damage rolls. The player must choose which end they're going to use before they attack, unless they have the dual wielder feat, in which case they may attack with both ends each round.
Yeah.
So basically, if you don't have the dual wielder feat, you pretty much, it counts as just one weapon. You just use one end or the other. If you do have the feat, you can use it as if it were two weapons. I'm presuming two weapons that are light.
Yeah.
Maybe because of how dual wielding works in 5th edition.
Yeah, I think that's... Well, isn't it in 5th edition? It's just like you can... I thought anybody can dual wield in 5th edition. You're just... You use your bonus action to attack with your offhand weapon, but it does not gain the benefit of your like strength or dex.
Correction, if you have the dual wielder feat, they don't have to be light, but they can't be heavy. No, I think heavy means something else.
Or heavy only applies...
Heavy means a small creature has to use it in 2 hands.
Right, yes.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, like going from 3rd to 5th, like there's definitely some changes.
Yes, sorry. And I've never made a dual wielding character in 5th edition. Anyway, so at 5th level and or after a side quest set by the dungeon master.
Sure.
The Axe of Storms gains the ability that one end deals an extra D4 electrical damage on a hit, and the other end deals an extra D4 thunder damage on a hit. So after a certain point, it's able to become wreathed in magical energy so that one end is lightning and the other end is thunder.
Nice.
On a critical hit, the target must make a Constitution saving throw versus the DC of the player character's level, or be blinded if you hit with the lightning end,
right,
or deafened if you hit with the thundering end for 1d4 round. For example, if the character is level 12, then the DC for the Constitution saving throw is also 12.
Nice.
So this goes a little bit against the norm for DCs. Usually it's like includes your proficiency bonus or something.
Yeah.
The way that this is written, it would be incredibly weak if you got that ability really low, but then, could become much more powerful as you got to be higher level.
Sure.
On a critical miss, however, if you roll a natural 1 on your attack roll, the character wielding it must make the same Constitution saving throw or be blinded or deafened for D4 rounds, depending on which end you're using.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit risky.
Yeah.
I think it's still, probably worth using, especially because you're probably going to be able to make the DC,
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, the DCs aren't that bad.
Not super high. And then as you level up and or after a side quest, this gets more powerful. So at 10th level, the Axe of Storms becomes +2, and both of the electrical and thunder damages increase to 2d4. And the DC goes up to, and then of course the DC for the effects increases along with your level. And then at 15th level and or after a side quest becomes +3, and the electrical and thunder damage increase to 3d4. Nice. And then again, the DC keeps increasing. So yeah, so I think this is kind of a neat weapon. I really like the theming.
Yeah.
It makes me think of, there was the 3rd edition monster, the Marut.
The Marut. Wait.
Yes. The Marut, not the cockatrice. Sorry. Back in the Age of Worms campaign, ding, there was, I had Steve's character, Shadowhand Silverbones, make a knowledge check to see if he could recognize what a Marut was, and he rolled really badly. So I told him that the Marut was basically this like lizard chicken that petrifies things when it pecks them. And then there was another time, I think he rolled to see if he knew what a cockatrice was, and he rolled really badly on that. So I told him that it was this, mechanical being from another plane that has these fists of thunder and lightning. So anyway, but I'm talking about the actual Marut.
Right. Okay.
The Marut was this like big, beefy mechanical thing from the plane of Mechanus. It was one of the Inevitables, which were like these, like I said, like these clockwork outsiders that were sent by the powers that be to punish people for certain things. Like I think one of them was there to punish people who tried to evade death. So like possibly people who like created undead or became a lich or whatever. If it was deemed that they were supposed to die and they evaded it, they would send a pack of these Inevitables after them. Anyway, one of them was the Marut, and he had this special ability. They were called the Fists of Thunder and Lightning. And so he had one fist that was thunder and one fist that was lightning. And I don't know. So that's what this makes me think of.
It's like, that kind of reminds me. It's like, I'd like you to meet my 2 best friends. And he puts his fists up. And it's like, this one's lightning and this one's thunder.
I don't remember what they were called in Anchorman, but he's got like Jack Johnson and something else.
Gosh. I can't remember. I haven't seen that one in a while.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe we could watch that for our bonus episode.
I suppose we could at some point. What Jeff is referring to is that I mentioned in a previous episode, but if you go to bit.ly/InterPartyConflict, we have a survey that you can take, just kind of asking, what you think of the podcast, what your favorite segment is, what was your favorite episode. If you had some suggestions on how to make the podcast better, how would you make it better? And then one of the questions is, if we had a Patreon, how likely would you be to donate to it? And then the next question was what are some things that you would like as a Patreon reward?
Right.
And one of the possible rewards that I put as an option was, we might make bonus episodes about a video game or a movie or something like that.
Yeah, just sort of like a shorter little side episode of just some sort of pop culture thing or sort of, I don't know,
because
entertainment sort of ththing. Believe
it or not, Jeff and I do indulge in other aspects of pop culture other than Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, well, sometimes. I don't know. I don't have time for all of that.
Yeah. So anyway, so this has been the Dragon's Hoard for today. The Axe of Storms, I think, is a really cool item. Mm-hmm. If anybody wanted to submit items for the Dragon's Hoard or questions for us to discuss or stories for the Funeral Pyre, how would they do that, Jeff?
They can send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com.
Yes. And so before we get to questions, I just want to remind everybody to check out the other podcasts on the Crit Nation Fellowship. We have Crit Academy, of course, which is Justin, Ian, and Brandon. They produce quality content for players and DMs every episode. They're a great podcast. And then we just recently, within the last couple of weeks, added D&D Character Lab to the Fellowship as well. Woo! So they're that great podcast where they make characters and then duke them out basically through a battle of words.
Yeah, I really liked the Turtle episode.
Yes. So they're a lot of fun. I recommend everybody go check them out too. And have some fun with this little network of podcasts that Justin is setting up.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I just want to also remind everybody to go to audibletrial.com/conflict. You can go there. If you sign up, you get a free 30-day trial, free audiobook. You can cancel your subscription before they charge you, and you'll keep that for free. And let me just try putting it a different way. Every time someone does this, we get money.
Yeah.
We get some money every time someone signs up for this free thing. You can cancel it. We still get paid.
We still get paid. We still get, money to put towards the podcast.
Exactly.
It really helps us out. And all you got to do is click a link and be like, hey, I want a free audiobook.
Yeah. So you get something free. We get free money. It's win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
And then I imagine Audible probably wants you to spend money or something. Well, I mean, don't worry about that.
It's not a bad service.
Right.
I've gotten several hours into the second Game of Thrones book. So
cool.
I'm enjoying it.
Cool. Yeah. So audibletrial.com/conflict and get yourself a free audiobook, free 30-day trial. All right. You want to get into some questions, Jeff?
Sure.
Cool.
All right. Our first question comes from Carl on email, and he asks, how do you handle critical roles, and what are some other good ideas?
Yeah. So he sent this in a little while ago, and I remember when I got it, I thought to myself, we just went over critical hits. So I don't know if we should necessarily do that again.
Well, didn't we just talk on critical fails mostly?
Well, pretty much. But then I went back and I looked at our episodes and I realized that was episode 8.
Oh.
So that was it was so long ago.
Sure.
It feels like it was just yesterday, but yeah. So yes, we only really covered critical fumbles. We didn't really cover critical hits very much. But
because critical fails are one of those things that everybody aren't there there's no official rules for them.
There aren't. Yeah, a natural one is an automatic miss.
But I feel in most groups people have this idea that a critical fail should be this oh no situation, and not just oh crap, I totally missed.
Yeah. And I've gone on the record many times as saying that I in fact on this very podcast that I do not like critical fumbles. I won't get into it as much as I went into it before, but
it's basically a numbers thing. It's you're the monsters are already at more of an advantage when it comes to stuff, when it comes to combat in a lot of ways, that giving the players a whole nother a whole nother thing to worry about. It just doesn't balance out well.
Right. Statistically speaking, any sort of change to the critical rules, whether it's adding a critical hit deck or adding critical fumbles, anything is numerically screwing over your players. Now, a lot of people use them. A lot of people love them. I'm not saying it will make your game worse, but as a player, it is less advantageous for you to opt into this house rule than to not. So let's just kind of go over how critical hits work, standard D&D. And then I've got some examples of like what a lot of people do. Like I know what Justin does. Justin at Crit Academy does for critical hits. Talk a little bit about critical fumbles, and I'll talk about how you can make critical fumbles not suck for the reasons that I think that they suck.
Sure.
So the way the critical hits work in 5th edition, it's really pretty simple. If you roll a natural 20 on your attack roll, you do extra damage on your attack. Right. So in earlier editions, if you rolled a natural 20, you then had to roll a second time to confirm. You don't have to do that anymore.
Oh my God. I completely forgot about confirming.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't a thing in 4th edition either. It was stopped at 3.5.
Wait, what was it? If you rolled a 20, it was an automatic hit.
Yes, a 20 is always an automatic hit.
Yeah. And then you would confirm the critical. So it means if you rolled and that roll hit,
yes,
you got the extra critical damage.
Correct. So if the enemy had a really, really high AC, you might have you can hit if you get a natural 20.
Right.
But you weren't guaranteed to crit because you might not be able to roll high enough on the confirmation roll.
Sure. And then things that were like immune to critical hits, you
just hit. You'd still automatically hit, but you didn't do any extra damage.
You didn't get to confirm because it was immune to them.
Yes. In 5th edition, so like I said, you roll a natural 20, you automatically hit, and in addition to your normal weapon damage, so let's say you normally do a D10 plus 4 damage. Now you do 2d10 plus 4 damage.
Sure.
You don't double the modifiers. The modifiers all stay the same.
Right.
But any dice get doubled.
Yeah, so you're doubling the weapon dice.
So if your weapon deals a d10, you do 2d10. If your weapon does... I
don't know if there's any...
weapons do multiple dice in this edition?
I don't think so, but for this... In this case, we'll just say if it did do 2d4 damage, it would do
Sure.
4d4.
If there was a weapon that did 2d4, it would do 4d4. But in 5th edition, sneak attack and stuff like smite, all of those also get doubled. So if you have 3d6 sneak attack, you now do an extra 6d6 sneak attack instead of 3d6.
Nice.
Which is pretty cool. But then, in earlier editions, you didn't multiply sneak attack, but you were able to sneak attack multiple times per attack action. In this one, you can only sneak attack once per turn. That doesn't mean once per round. If you get an attack of opportunity, you can sneak attack on your attack of opportunity.
Oh, okay.
Because it's not your turn. But if you get 2 attacks, you can only sneak attack with one of them.
Gotcha.
So anyway, if you roll a natural 20, you do whatever dice you roll for your attack get doubled. The modifiers don't get doubled, but any dice you roll do get doubled. Now, I've seen a lot of people, Justin from Crit Academy, he does this, and I think this is probably a pretty good way to do it. I just go with the standard. I could be convinced to go otherwise, though. A lot of people, they don't like it when, okay, awesome, I get to roll 2d10 for my critical,
right? And
then you roll a 1 and a 2.
Yeah.
And it's that's less damage than a normal hit could have done.
Right, yeah.
So what a lot of people do is they make one die do max damage, and then you roll a second one.
Sure.
So if you normally do a D10 plus 4, now you do 10 plus 4 plus a D10.
Yeah. Which I kind of see it as the one that's doing max damage is the normal dice. So you're doing max damage, and then the critical is doing beyond that. So
exactly.
You get to add an extra D whatever to it.
Yeah. So I personally, I haven't run a game other than my little introductions at the library. I haven't run a game in a long time, and whenever I did run a game, I just use the standard crit rules, and especially when I'm trying to teach people the game, I'm not going to throw house rules at them.
Sure, yeah.
But I could be, if I was running a game and the players wanted to, this is probably something I would bring up at session 0, how do you guys want to do criticals? Mm-hmm. So, standard critical hits, that's how they work. There's also certain class abilities and such that increase your critical range.
Yeah.
So for example, if you're a high enough level fighter, one of the fighter archetypes gets an ability that they crit on a 19 or a 20.
Yeah. Now, does that mean that they also automatically hit on the 19?
No.
Okay.
They still only automatically hit on a 20.
So it's the natural 20 is the automatic hit whereas a critical is its own sort of, it's technically the same thing, but it's
similar, but slightly different.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, if you have that ability and you get a 19, it's not an automatic hit, but it's probably still going to hit because you rolled a 19 and you're a high level fighter.
Sure. Yeah. More than likely you're going to hit.
Exactly. It's also important to note that any attack that makes an attack roll and deals damage can crit.
Okay.
So even if that is a spell.
Oh, okay.
If
so
you attack
critical spells now. All right.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that was kind of a thing, and that was a thing in 3rd edition too. But I don't think it was as well spelled out in 3rd edition.
Spelled out.
There you go. So magic missile cannot crit because you're not making an attack roll. Fireball cannot crit because the enemy is making a save.
Sure.
However, flame bolt can crit because you are making an attack roll.
Yeah, and
in which case. If you roll a natural 20 on your attack, you do twice as many dice.
Nice.
So that can be pretty cool. Like Eldritch Blast, of course, that's a common cantrip that can crit. Now, one important spell to keep in mind, Disintegrate. The way Disintegrate works in this edition, it used to be an attack roll, and then if you hit, they made a save, and if they failed their save, they took a ton of damage.
Right.
In this edition, there's no attack roll.
Okay.
It is just a save. And it's not a con save to see if they can withstand it. It's just a dexterity save to see if they can get out of the way.
Oh.
So like the idea is that if a disintegrate hits you,
you're done.
You're getting disintegrated. It doesn't insta-kill you though. It just does a crap ton of damage.
Oh, okay.
But the reason they made it a dexterity save and not an attack roll
so it wouldn't get
is so you couldn't crit with it. Because as it is, you already are going to be doing like, I don't know, 80 damage or something when you hit with it.
Uh-huh.
So yeah.
What is it, like 10d10 or something ridiculous?
No, it's like a whole bunch of d6 plus 40
what?
or something.
Okay.
Something goofy. So yeah, so any attack that has an attack roll and deals damage can get a critical hit.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that's a melee attack, a ranged attack, unarmed attack, or a spell attack, anything has an attack roll and deals damage can crit.
Yeah.
Now, there are critical hit tables out there and critical hit decks.
Yeah.
And again, I don't really like these because of, it favors the enemies. I won't really get into it, but it just does. Just trust me, it does, because the enemies make more attack rolls than you do generally. Right. And if you cut off an enemy's arm because of a critical hit, it's not a big deal because they were only meant to last for one encounter.
Right.
If they cut off your arm, that's a big deal. Enemies don't have to deal with lasting consequences. Therefore, lasting consequences are not going to be a hindrance to them, whereas they are going to be a hindrance to you.
Sure, yeah.
So use them at your own risk. Maybe you'll have fun with them, but I don't like them, and that's why. So the way that a critical table works or a critical hit deck works is basically if you get a critical hit, rather than getting the extra damage, you either roll a percentile and check whatever chart you're using, or if you have a deck, you pull out a card from the deck, and then you do whatever the result says.
Right, yeah.
So some of those, there's
stab out
thousands of them out there.
Yeah.
Some of them might be you stab them in the eye and they are blinded. It might be you do triple damage. Ooh. It might be you kill them instantly. I mean, that's probably pretty rare, but it exists.
Sure.
There are critical tables out there where you just instantly kill a target because you rolled a 20.
Yeah.
So, use those at your own risk, but they are out there. They can add an element of randomness that a lot of people seem to like.
Yeah, I mean, like it's exciting, and there's a lot of like weird stuff in the deck or whatever. And I don't know, it's like, what if you get that one that's, what if you do get that automatic kill one that takes down the bad guy in one hit?
Yeah, I mean that can be fun. I just prefer to look at the other side. What happens when it's in a climactic battle, or no, it's in just a random encounter.
Yeah, and
a player character gets killed by a goblin.
Right. Because there were 3 goblins, that means they're 3 times as likely to get a critical. And,
So, anyway, with the way that a critical table works or whatever is if you get a critical hit, instead of the extra damage, you roll on this chart, which might give you extra damage. It might give you some sort of a dismembering effect or whatever. There's so many different ones out there. I cannot cover all of them.
Right.
So those are critical hits. Critical fumbles are kind of the opposite. But as Jeff mentioned earlier, there are no official critical fumble rules. I don't think critical fumbles have ever been an actual rule.
Now, Well, isn't it a natural one always misses, or is
well,
that
it does.
not the case?
It is. A natural one is always a miss.
Okay.
But I'm talking about like, oh, you rolled a natural one, your weapon breaks.
Or you fall prone or something.
Well, we used to, I know myself and a lot of groups that I played in there was a very, very common house rule that if you rolled a natural one, you had to make a reflex save.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And then if you failed the reflex save, then something bad happened. But again, that was not an official rule. I don't think that was ever an official rule.
Right.
It was just a very, very common house rule.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, a lot of the time, the effects were just some arbitrary thing that the DM came up with. But so implementing a critical fumble rule is a house rule. So just know what you're getting yourself into. And like I said, again, I don't like them, but there are lots of them out there. There are critical fumble decks, critical fumble tables that work very similar to the critical hit tables. Just if you roll a natural one, you look on this chart, you roll a percentile or whatever, you draw a card from this deck, and then you do whatever that says.
Yeah.
A lot of that time, it might be you fall prone. It might be that you lose a turn. It might be that your weapon slips out of your hand and you have to spend your next turn picking it back up or pull out another one. Mm-hmm. It might be that you hit yourself instead of the enemy. I think we recently had a funeral pyre where a character tried to attack like a lizard folk underwater and ended up cutting off his own head.
Right, yeah.
That's the type of occurrence that I think makes it not worth using one of these. But if you want to use it, I don't mean to tell you how to run your own game. I cannot stress enough how much I think that these are not fun.
I feel like the way to kind of compromise would be like a deck or a table, but none of them are like permanent or like actual like mechanical effects.
Okay.
More flavor wise. So like instead of losing an arm, you get a scar on your arm.
Yeah. And we kind of talked about that in a previous episode.
And so you have a scar, and now you have a story for this scar, and so other like NPCs can be like, what's with the scar? And you get to talk about that time that goblin got a critical on you.
Yeah.
Or you critical an enemy and like give him a scar, and then like if he manages to get away, you'll be able to like identify him by his scar, or at the very least he might hold a grudge against you because of the scar or something like that.
Sure.
Like little things like that aren't gonna affect. It's not going to cause your character to die instantly because he rolled a 1.
Yeah.
But that character might like singe his hair off or something, and he's bald for the rest of the adventure.
Sure. Yeah. So I think that's a great way to handle it. Like if you roll a natural 1, you don't suffer any mechanical effects, but yeah, you have to narrate some sort of, or I guess the DM could do it.
Sure.
Narrate some sort of like of cosmetic thing that happens as a result of it. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, you tear your clothes, like you're not gonna damage your armor because that'd be a mechanical effect, but like your clothes tear a bit, so like you pull like a Goku and like half of your gi falls off because you're
never your pants though, always your shirt.
Yeah, the pants stay on, but the shirt and everything else just falls to pieces.
Yes. Another thing that I don't think we've ever mentioned when talking about critical hits. Another reason why I think that critical hits, they could work. I'm not saying they can't, but another reason why they don't work is because as it is, a high level character is more likely to fumble than a low level character, because a high level character is going to get more attacks per round. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
If you're a high level fighter, you might get 3 or 4 attacks per round.
That's a good point.
That means you have 4 chances to, oops, I'm Butterfingers and I just dropped my sword despite the fact that I'm a 20th level fighter.
Right, yeah.
Whereas the first level fighter is 4 times less likely to have that happen.
Huh. I've never thought of that.
Exactly.
That's why all fighters should be halflings, because they get to reroll ones.
I suppose.
I think they could do that like once per round, actually.
Oh my goodness. Well, so I think you're right. They Anyway. So one way that you can make critical hits and critical fumbles not suck so bad, because as it is, they're very arbitrary. They don't follow the normal rule scheme of the game. They don't take your player's skill into account. In fact, like I just said, they put your character's skill against you. Mm-hmm. So they don't take your character's level into account. They don't generally Like a lot of the time they don't include like, oh, there isn't a save involved. A lot of the time it's just like, oh, this thing happens. And so the way that you can make them not suck as much is you can make it so that, first off, enemies can't critical hit. Or if they critical hit, they can't do anything beyond the double damage or whatever.
Right.
Not even necessarily all enemies, but maybe just the little random encounter mooks or whatever.
Yeah, it's like maybe they automatically hit, but that's it.
I mean, I'm even fine with them doing the double damage. But if you use like a critical hit deck, don't let a non-boss enemy use the critical hit deck.
Sure.
Because then, like I said, a random goblin is just going to be like, oh, whoops, I cut your head off. Sorry, guy.
Right, yeah.
And that, I think, goes kind of contrary to, like, you know, this is a heroic game, and this arbitrary house rule that you've put in made it so that a player is more likely to get killed by a whole bunch of first-level goblins than 1/20th level enemy, 1/20th level boss.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So a lot of people do that, where like only certain enemies are allowed to critically hit.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the flip side, you can make it so that you can only critically fumble against certain types of enemies. So that, or maybe you might make it so that only your first attack of all of your attacks can critically fumble. So that then the high level fighter doesn't have 4 times as many chances to cut his own head off.
Right, yeah.
Than the first level fighter does.
Gotcha.
You know,
yeah,
so
you can only pull from the deck once per round or something.
There
like
you go. That's, I mean, well, but even still,
yeah,
you might be getting it every other round because you have so many attacks.
Yeah.
So again, I'm sorry if it seems like I'm very negative about this, but I am.
They were asking Alex, ask about critical hits. We went back to the critical fumble thing.
Well, I mean, this is about critical rolls.
Oh, okay.
Not just critical hits, but also critical fumbles.
Yeah.
Because for every the only reason that I am more lenient towards critical hits is because critical hits are part of the rules.
Yeah.
The double damage thing is part of the rules.
Yeah, there's nothing other than you miss automatically from a natural one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
and I looked it up.
Yeah.
Halflings, it's attack rolls, ability rolls, and checks.
Yeah.
If you roll a 1, you get to re-roll once, and then you have to take that result.
And is that once per whatever it is?
It's just all ones.
Okay, but like if you got a 1 and then got a second one.
Right, yeah, it's once per
once per whatever the roll is.
Yeah, but
once
I mean,
per
like,
attack or once per skill check.
But say you had like that, a halfling had 3 attacks. If he rolled 3 1s, he got to re-roll each one of those.
Now I want to be a halfling fighter.
Halflings are pretty great.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, in my games, I don't usually have any sort of special critical thing. I don't usually have any sort of special fumble thing. The exception being when I am doing my like introduction to D&D, I will sometimes, if just like a mook rolls a natural 1,
mm-hmm.
I might have them like, oh, he breaks his weapon. Or I might have the player, if he gets a critical hit, I might give that a special description. I don't think I would ever give a player extra damage. But I do want to, if I'm trying to introduce someone to the game, I do want to just give them a little bit more of a taste of what creativity in the game can be.
Sure, yeah.
Not usually by changing the rules, but I especially try to give like flavor descriptions for something that is different now that role has been made.
Right, yeah.
So I think I mentioned before, like I did like a little haunted house thing. At one point, a player rolled a natural 1. And so rather than say like, oh, sorry, you just missed, I had the natural 1 destroy a piece of cover that the enemy was using. So he missed the enemy so badly that he hit the enemy's cover, but in doing so provided himself a benefit for the future because the enemy couldn't use it as cover anymore.
Sure, yeah, okay.
So yeah, that's pretty much how critical rolls work. I'll put some links in the show notes for some critical fumble tables, some critical hit tables. Again, I don't condone them, but they're out there if you want some examples of how they could work. I think Jeff's idea was really, really good. Make it so that the only additions to a critical hit or a critical fumble are just cosmetic and or story-based.
Right, yeah.
I think that's a really good idea. I think I might try to use that in the future.
Yeah, it just adds a little something. You still got that sort of like that, you might still have a deck or something, so you get that bit of randomness that everybody likes. and it still adds something and a little bit of excitement, but it's not gonna, it's not gonna ruin anything.
Yeah, there's one critical hit table. I'll see if I can find it and put it in the show notes. But I thought it was pretty funny. It was that if you were to just like sort of glance over the list, there's a whole bunch of them that are like subtract blank from your, so like subtract 6 from your roll and go off of that. So like it's directing you to other spots on the list.
Sure.
But then there are a bunch of them on the list that are like, you kill the target instantly and like you do all this crazy stuff. And of course, when I first saw this, I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. Why would anybody use this? But then I actually looked at how all of the numbers that direct you to other numbers work. And I realized there is no actual way to roll any of those. Every single one of them just every single possible number redirects you to like, you get a critical hit, or it's like you get a miss or whatever it was. I'm doing a terrible job of explaining this.
No, but I got you. It's like you roll for this chart, but you roll a 2 and it says, add 4, and so like, okay, I look at 6, and 6 is subtract 1. It's like, all right, you go to 5, and
exactly,
5 is
yeah.
Add 5, and you go to 10, and it's you miss.
And like you realize that every single possible result just redirects you to 10.
Right.
Yeah.
Our next question comes from Quayata, I believe. It seems right. Quayata asks, this was on Reddit, does the elven racial trance ability allow them to get the benefits of an 8-hour long rest in only 4 hours? Why or why not? And I was definitely wondering about this one. I wasn't too sure. At the very least, in the 5th edition, I have no idea.
Yes. Now, this one actually, it does have a cut and dried answer.
Okay.
But we'll get there.
Okay.
Let me first read the relevant text.
Sure.
So so that you know what elven trance is.
Mm. If any of you have seen the Lord of the Rings films, I'm not even sure if it's in the normal theatrical cut, but I know in the extended cut of I want to say Fellowship of the Ring, there's like a scene where Legolas is in his trance. It's like in an elven trance sort of thing. He sleeps with his eyes open, basically.
Interesting.
And it's just like, it's like one of those like creepy moments, like, but
Jeff, our listeners probably don't watch Lord of the Rings.
Oh,
what
gosh,
are you talking about?
I'm sorry. Sports ball, go home team.
Yes. I was listening to a horror movie podcast a while back, and one of the guys on there made some comment about, because somebody said something about Star Trek, and he made some comment about like, people who watch Star Trek don't listen to our podcast. And I'm thinking to myself, you're doing something just as nerdy. You're talking about 80s horror movies.
You're hosting a podcast.
Yes. It's like, so I was joking. I'm not trying to alienate any listeners. I'm sure we have listeners that are from all walks of life.
Sure, yeah.
And I welcome listeners from all walks of life.
It's like it's like, I would say maybe the only people who don't watch Star Trek but listen to podcasts are people who listen to like sports podcasts. But then I realized that's what the radio's for.
That is.
Like, there's like, and people who would do sports podcasts are probably also nerds. But I'm going to go on a side tangent here.
Okay.
The nerdiest thing in the world, fantasy football.
Absolutely.
Fantasy sports, way nerdier than most things people would say is nerdy.
Yes. I 100% agree.
Actually, it reminds me of when my sister, this was years ago, my sister would, Steve and I would hang out a lot and play D&D and video games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so then, like, my sister would call us nerds. Whatever. She came in the room one day and she was like, hey, have you guys heard of this really cool website? It's called The Facebook. And we were like, what's that? And so she goes and describes the Facebook, which was called The Facebook back then. And we stared at her. We looked at each other. And we were like, that's the nerdiest thing we've ever heard. Because like Steve and I were like playing like these like web, I don't know if they're around anymore, but these like sort of like forum web-based like strategy, like fantasy strategy games almost.
Huh.
It's something that you would find on Facebook, like a mobile game or something like that now.
Yeah.
But like back then it was just a website where like you'd rack up these points and you'd spend the points on an army, and you'd be a dwarf or an elf army or a dwarf army or a human army or something like that. And like the way she was describing the Facebook reminded us of that, because you like poked people and you got friends and this and that. And we're like, that's really nerdy. And she's like, no, it's not. It's cool because all the college kids are doing it.
Yeah.
I'm like, ugh. Sorry, where were we?
Yeah, so elven trance.
Okay.
Now,
wow. Okay. Sorry.
This is another question that's going to be pretty rules based. So, if you're not playing 5th edition D&D, I apologize, but this is something that I think it comes up a lot in the 5th edition Facebook group. A lot of the time people ask this question. So let me read the relevant text for the trance ability.
Mm-hmm.
Elves don't need to sleep. Instead, they meditate deeply, remaining semi-conscious for 4 hours a day. The common word for such meditation is trance. While meditating, you can dream after a fashion. Such dreams are actually mental exercises that have become reflexive through years of practice. After resting in this way, you gain the same benefit that a human does from 8 hours of sleep. So, the question then is, does this mean that you can take a long rest in 4 hours? Because in 5th edition D&D, you have a short rest, which is 1 hour, and a long rest, which is 8 hours. And a lot of abilities refresh on a long rest, such as spellcasting. A lot of abilities only function after you've taken a long rest.
Yeah.
And then why or why not? So I will explain the whole thing to this.
Sure.
Now, and also the developers of the game have weighed in on this. So I will get to them in a moment. Okay. I will tell you why or why not it doesn't work. Okay.
Sure.
First off, I guess I'll just get it right out there. It does not work.
Okay.
That's not how it works.
So it's not, I'm going to take a 4-hour trance and I get a long rest.
Correct. And here's why. So although a long rest is usually sleep.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be. You can sleep without taking a long rest, and you can take a long rest without sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take a long rest where you got a bunch of spellcasters and they all have to sleep, so you're the fighter, and I guess you got to pull an all-nighter again. That's fine. Like you can still gain the benefits of a long rest, even if you didn't sleep. You might suffer some exhaustion or something. I don't think the game really has. They don't really have as fleshed out of rules as they should about like sleeping and that sort of thing.
Sure.
But you can long rest without sleep. Similarly, if you just finish your long rest and you slept and you got all your spells back, and then you have a big battle where you shoot off all your spells and you just go back to sleep, you're not going to get your spells back even though you slept. You could even have your character sleep for 8 hours and still not get the benefits of a long rest. Therefore, you can see that there is, although long rest and sleep are similar and possibly connected things, they are not one and the same. So something that lets you reduce the time of one of them does not necessarily affect the other. If, for example, there were some sort of a magic item that let you gain the benefits of a long rest in 4 hours, unless it also said you got the benefits of 8 hours of sleep in 4 hours, it wouldn't do so.
Okay.
Because again, the two are similar and related things, but they are different. So when an elf rests, when they take their long rest, they only need to be trancing for 4 of those hours, but they still have to spend another 4 hours resting.
Yeah.
And long rest, as I said, doesn't have to be sleep. So like in the book, it says that as long as a long rest is light activity, such as talking, I think like light walking, you can't be in combat during that time. You can't, there's a bunch of things you can't be doing during that in order for it to count as a long rest, but you still have to be basically resting.
Yeah. Like just doing like idle things, like, like sharpening your weapon or something like that. Or like you can still be like, keeping watch, I
think so. Yeah.
I think that's sort of the idea, is that like the elf takes like first watch or something like that, where it's like they can spend the first 4 hours keeping watch, and then then they can like wake up one of the other guys, or like one of the other elves. They like take shifts.
Sure.
So like first 4 hours I'll go into trance, seconds, the next 4 hours you go into trance, like
right.
So someone's always watching the camp or something.
Right. And I believe it was Jeremy Crawford, he's one of the developers of the game. I think it was him. I don't think it was Mike Merrills, but I'm pretty sure it was Jeremy Crawford, said officially that the elves' trance ability is not meant to be a mechanical advantage.
Okay.
It is not meant to be, the elf only needs half as much time, therefore they can do more adventuring. It's just supposed to be that they are this strange, alien, aloof race.
Sure.
That they function differently than us. They don't need sleep.
Now, that's listed in the racial traits section.
It is, yeah.
See, I think that's why that's the most misleading part about it.
Yeah,
is because it's in a trait.
Yeah, I don't disagree that it is misleading. I could definitely see someone thinking that they were able to take a long rest in 4 hours, but the official word is that's not how it's supposed to work.
Yeah, I know I know they're not officially in 5th edition yet. But I know with Warforged, and this was similar in 4th edition, where they had a very similar thing where it's like they didn't need sleep at all,
right?
But they had to, like, during their rest, they had to be I think they had to spend, I think it was like 4 hours of inactivity, or like they had to spend 4 hours doing light, not doing anything, too strenuous.
Sure.
So it had a similar effect, but I'm assuming it probably is under the same rules of it. Like, it doesn't mean that they get a full, they get a full rest in a shorter time.
Right.
They just don't have to sleep. And in specifically their case, like, they're always aware.
Yeah.
As long as they're not knocked unconscious, they're always aware. So it's like they are always the guy on watch, basically.
Yeah. Now, of course, the question needs to be asked, would it unbalance a game if you did allow elves to gain the benefits of a long rest in 4 hours?
Probably not.
Probably not. I mean, unless your entire party is elves, I don't really see it. I don't really see it changing much of how the game is played.
Yeah, really not. Yeah.
So,
like, it's still 4 hours. Like, I don't know. Like, if the DM is worried about the players like taking advantage of that, just make things happen in 4 hours instead of 8. Like,
I guess
it's like if the idea is like they're getting their spells again in a shorter amount of time, so that they can maybe fight. They'll fight one room of bad guys and then rest for 4 hours and then fight another room of bad guys. Just make it so that's and something happens within those 4 hours. If you don't want them to do that, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really not that big of a deal, I guess.
One thing, though, that I have seen people get wrong about this, that it just boggles my mind, is I have seen people somehow interpret the trance ability to mean that anything that refreshes on a long rest now refreshes on a short rest, which makes no sense to me whatsoever, because a short rest is 1 hour. Trance is 4 hours. Long rest is 8 hours.
Yeah.
I don't see how, but I've seen multiple people think that that's how it works.
That's because that's pretty intense. And
that would unbalance the game. Absolutely. Without a doubt.
Yeah, because there are class abilities where it's you get an ability at 3rd level that resets on a long rest, and then 10 levels later it upgrades to a short rest.
Yeah, and it makes warlocks pointless. The whole strength of a warlock is that they get very few abilities, but all of those abilities refresh on a short rest.
Right.
If you could make any elf wizard do the same thing, warlocks would not be in the game anymore.
Yeah, they wouldn't have added warlocks as a core class. Warlocks has only been a core class since 5th edition, right?
Well,
were they in 4th?
They were in 4th.
Okay.
And in 3rd edition they were in complete arcane.
Yeah, right. But I mean
they were in 4th edition, but yeah.
Yeah, it's that's what warlock brings to the table, is they have a much smaller pool of abilities, but they can use them much more often.
Yes. So anyway, I think that hopefully that puts us to rest. So again, I don't blame anybody for thinking that this is how it works.
I had no idea. I wasn't too sure.
If I hadn't seen the developers' input and heard the exact same arguments that I've just said, I probably would have thought the same thing.
Yeah.
But
because why put it in the racial traits if it doesn't really do anything? Well, it does do something. It shortens your sleep time, but since they haven't really put much into the mechanics of rest and exhaustion and things like that. There's definitely some stuff in
there's
there.
some, but not as much as there should be. For example, in 3rd edition, if you wore armor while you were sleeping, it gave you a level of exhaustion. That's strangely absent.
Yeah,
from the rules
you don't need to because although isn't there still rules about how long it takes to put armor on?
Yes, there is.
So it's very, that seems really silly. Why still have that in the book if it's no longer really relevant because you don't get exhausted from wearing armor when you sleep.
Exactly.
So why have this thing where it's like, why take off your armor if it's going to take you 10 minutes to put it back on?
Yeah. Anytime there's something that is strangely absent from the book, that's where I go to be like, why is this in the book?
Yeah.
And this other thing isn't.
Right. Yeah. But real thing though, armor is hard to put on.
Coming from a guy who wears armor.
At the Renaissance Fair, I put on it's nothing too crazy. It's leather armor. It's got a couple little little strap things here and there.
Yeah.
It takes me at least a half an hour to put on, and that's with
help, I'm guessing.
Skylar will be in the car, putting on her makeup or something like that. So she can't help me for every little bit of it, but she does most of the tying and everything. And it still takes us at least a half an hour to get ready. So not only do I try to get there early, I have to get there extra early so I could put armor on, because it takes a while. If I was doing it by myself, it would take me an hour. Now,
hang on, Jeff. I think you're mistaken, because according to the player's handbook, it takes 1 minute to don light armor, which would include leather.
I would say I'd say it's more medium armor. It's hardened leather.
Then it should only take you 5 minutes.
Dang it.
Yeah. How long does it take to take off?
Probably about 10, 15 minutes.
1 minute is what you mean to say, because that's what it says in the book?
It probably takes me a good 15 minutes.
Are you telling me that the book is wrong, Jeff? Is there something about this book that is not quote unquote realistic?
Here, let me see that book. Let me see the book. All right. Well, see, even heavy armor is 10 minutes. You know what? I'm starting to believe that I might not be a D&D character.
I don't think that you can be on this podcast anymore, Jeff.
Oh, jeez. What have been going through all these dragons hordes and things for? What's that all been about? If I'm not,
Jeff,
what?
You've been in the dragon horde this whole time.
Jeff, the dragon's horde's been closed for 10 years.
All right. I think that'll do it for questions for today.
Yeah.
Before we close out, I just want to let's take a moment.
Yes.
Take a deep breath. Accept the existential crisis of whether or not we are D&D characters.
Oh gosh.
And let's remember the other D&D characters, the actual D&D characters, who have the definite D&D characters who have come before us, as we toss another log onto the funeral pyre. All right. Well, we have a short entry today, and this was submitted by Cramsewell42. Does that sound about right?
Sounds good to me.
Reddit user Cramsewell42. And he says, playing a Curse of Strahd game using Dungeon World, running from werewolves, our paladin couldn't get over the wall.
Oh, no.
Basically had his torso ripped off while the party pulled him up. Just imagine how horrifying that would be to be pulling up your friend and you're having trouble. He's just too heavy, and suddenly he's not that heavy anymore.
He's about half as heavy as he was before.
And then you realize why.
Oh, man.
Well, I mean, at least rest assured that he's not going to become a werewolf.
Sure, yeah. Can't really become a lycanthrope when you're only half a man.
I feel like several of our funeral pyre stories have involved the Curse of Strahd.
Is that right?
It's the Hardy Dice Friends. They wasn't Curse of Strahd, but they were fighting Strahd.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right.
I'm pretty sure we've had a couple of them. Anyway.
Oh, geez.
So let's raise a glass in memory of this nameless paladin who just couldn't get a leg up.
Aww.
Clink.
Oh.
All right. To submit questions for us to discuss, items for the Dragon's Horde, or stories for the funeral pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, a running list of questions asked, and important links, go to interpartyconflict.com. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/interpartyconflict, or our subreddit at reddit.com/r/interpartyconflict, where I post weekly discussion questions for you. We're also on Twitter at InPartyConflict. We're on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube. Anywhere you download podcasts, please rate, review, subscribe, or just tell a friend. If you feel like donating, we have a PayPal donate button on our website. And as I said, you can go to audibletrial.com/conflict and get yourself something free and get us free money.
Yes.
So go do that. Anything that you can help us get would go towards making the podcast better. Mm-hmm. Jeff, do you want to tell us about FriendQuest?
FriendQuest is our YouTube channel where we play games such as Tower of Doom and Shadow over Mistar. We also have a short playthrough of Gauntlet Slayer Edition on Steam.
Yes, and both of us recently picked up the game Crawl.
Yes.
Which I don't know if you've played it at all.
No, I haven't touched it yet. But
I've played it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm even trying to see if I can get it to work on my arcade cabinet. Arcade sound. But no luck so far. It's something weird with the controls. I'll still have to figure out how to.
But that'd still be pretty cool.
Yeah. So
yeah, check that out.
Check that out. And then a reminder, go to bit.ly/InterPartyConflict. Take a short survey from us. And if you do, you get 2 free printable board games courtesy of Tom and Mary over at hollandspiel.com.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you very much. And our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hacker's RPG. So, Jeff, till next time,
think of a clever outro.
There you go.
Oh, no.